Okay, let's go. Okay, so Dr. Schanzer, a very dear friend of mine, is a cardiologist based in Edison, New Jersey, with 30 years of experience in cardiovascular medicine. You graduated from Albert Einstein College of Medicine, and you are a board certified in cardiovascular disease, internal medicine, and interventional cardiology. You're affiliated with the prestigious institutions including Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital and JFK University Medical Center. And in addition, if I'm not mistaken, you also learned in Karen Biavana. Am I right about that?
Yes.
Okay, and a YU graduate.
And a YU graduate.
Okay, so we have a lot of plaques we can put on the wall, Dr. Schanzer. A lot of plaques we can put on the wall.
You're trying to embarrass me, aren't you?
Indeed. No, I'm not trying to embarrass you. I'm trying to. Your wife's going to get so much nachas when she hears all the great things that I said. Okay, so first and foremost, something I really wanted to, number one, all Schanzers are the same. They're all amazing, at least I found. So I was speaking to Binyamin Benji, my neighbor, who's your nephew, a couple weeks ago, and he was telling me some absolutely incredible things about your father. So I would love to have a sit-down talk with him at some point also. He's just an incredible person. But, especially my generation, and definitely the generation after mine, but we're spoiled because being a Yid has always been easy and fantastic and maybe, if anything, a burden because we don't want to maybe do everything. But we have the luxury to. And your father grew up in hell. He grew up in hell, right? So what's it like being a child growing up in a house of a Holocaust survivor?
So let me start off by just telling his story a little bit because it's an amazing story.
It is.
And so he was a hidden child during the Holocaust. So his father was killed in Auschwitz. His mother was very resourceful and had some amazing stories. I mean, she lived in a convent for a little while, but always managed to light candles.
Right.
Which ended up leading to her getting kicked out of the convent, apparently. Lighting Ner Shabbos is frowned upon in a convent. Shocking. My father and his twin brother were in a Catholic orphanage for a little while, and my father always jokes around. He said they were young at the time. The only thing they knew was the Shema, so they would say the Shema every night, and they would go to church every morning. And he said they would. I'm not so good at the church stuff, so I don't really know exactly what they did. But he said they used to have a rosary, and they would cheat. So if you're supposed to go down on both knees, they would only go down on one knee. And they would.
I'm Ksherov.
And they would, they would sit there and they would die. God save us, kill them. God save us, kill them. So that was, the first, 3-4 years of his life from 7 to 10,
mm-hmm.
11, and then they came to the United States, and as my father likes to say, they lived on the 5th floor of a 4-story walk-up. And
got it.
They really didn't have the money for yeshiva at all, but my grandmother had taken one of my father's cousins whose parents were killed in Auschwitz, and he was taken out of Auschwitz by some priest who saved 36 kids from the concentration camp. And my grandmother felt that his family was more religious than their family, and that he should go to yeshiva.
Mm-hmm. So
she went to RJJ on the Lower East Side and spoke to the Menahel there. And obviously they didn't have any money whatsoever, so it was very easy to know who needed. But this principal found out that she had 2 other shmendriks at home, and he made sure that they came to RJJ, and that's really how he got a yeshiva education. So
it's amazing.
So it's amazing. So this one principal in RJJ who had the foresight to get these 2 schnooks into yeshiva. And now it's like Kefal Keflayim.
Right.
The amount of people who are from and learn and support institutions, so it's from this one person's vision.
Right.
So I want to say that I think that you have that vision, Rabbi Dorfman.
I don't know about that, but I try.
But you definitely try. Yeah, so that's good. So I think that there's sometimes every once in a while you come across people who are just real visionaries, and it makes a difference. And it's that one person was the principal. I should really know his name, but I don't.
But isn't it amazing? I'm sorry to interrupt, but he just believed in giving the gift to your father and his brother of just a Yiddish education, right? And now I feel like since it's so easy. We just have to write a check, which I'm not saying is nothing, but I feel like it's easier to scorn when it's just so readily available.
It's easy to scorn, but my father, thank God, has been, he has spoken at a number of scholarship breakfasts,
Mm-hmm.
and he's been honored at a few of these breakfasts. And when you hear him speak, it's hard not to say that the scholarship fund is probably the most important fund that we have, because if you give the kid a yeshiva education, everything else falls in afterwards.
That's right. Okay, but as you growing up in your father's home, what was that like? I'd imagine he's not taking things for granted because he grew up with nothing. Right?
So certainly there's some Holocaust pathology there, but my father and my uncle are both very happy people, and they're very appreciative of everything they have. So it's hard not to have that same appreciation. So you have to kind of really just love everything that you have, and they love every minute, and it rubs off.
As a kid, did you feel that also? There was a tremendous amount of focus that they had that maybe you find less now today?
So there's like I see in my own children, they take things for granted.
Right.
My father didn't take anything for granted. You didn't throw out anything. Everything had a use. Everything had a purpose. It was not out with the old, in with the new. It was, we can fix it, we can keep it, it still works.
How did that rub off on you? Meaning, how were you able to gain some of those skills yourself?
So I think that my siblings and I and my cousins all have that same concept. So first of all, we have a concept of community. Mm-hmm. An achrayus for everybody, for other people in the community. One of my father's cute lines is, if anybody is stupid enough to admit that they're Jewish, accept them.
Uh-huh.
So my father and by proxy my siblings will do anything that they can for another Yid.
Wow. Okay, how about in terms of asiyas mitzvahs? Again, growing up, did you see something that you feel is different that we find less today?
So I think this is probably not appropriate for a yeshiva, but my father would say people lose sight of the forest for the trees. So people now are more worried about the size of their talis than just wearing a talis, or people are more fixated on the color of your yarmulke than on asiyas mitzvahs.
Lehefech, this is the perfect place to say that. Open that up. What do you mean by that?
So one of my father's lines is, don't judge a man by the size of his talus. So some people have the most beautiful talus, the silver atara and the whole thing, but they're cheating on their taxes, or they're not going to hire a frum person to help them get a job. So that's so my father might not have been the most what we today probably we call religious, kind of like the story I told you before about my son who was clerking for a judge, who he said was not from, and then he tells me that he's off the next day because the judge is going to his grandson's sitter play, and I said I thought he wasn't from. He said, oh, he's not, but his grandchildren are, his children and grandchildren are, but he's shomer Torah mitzvahs. He just works.
Well, hold on. So let's be Socratic for a moment. Okay, what's from?
A great question. So if you would ask me, from my Rebbe said, if you're following Shulchan Aruch, then you're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think nowadays, the young kids they're more black and white, not just black and white, but they're black and white about the issue, and they're black and white.
How does that happen? How does that come to be? I mean, why do you have people that they'll buy fancy tzitzis and will have that atara, right? But when it comes to other aspects of halacha, they're just completely absent. How do you rectify that? How do you balance that out? How does that happen?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it was somewhere along the line. I would say it's a failure of value system.
But how does that come to be? I mean, that's such a stark. I mean, you have to really fall to really be carrying the fact that you have Rabbeinu Tam, but you haven't davened Trachris in 2 weeks, right? But you do find stuff like that. You're not wrong. But why do you feel that is? I'll give you my 2 cents in a moment, but I wanted to.
Oh, you give yours first, then I'll tell you if I agree.
Okay, I think that there's action, but I think frumkeit is not an action personally. I think frumkeit is in will. So I really don't know. This is going to sound somewhat radical, but I think it's true. I have no idea if Miriam the hairdresser was more or less holy than Rav Moshe Feinstein. I'm never going to know. Rav Moshe was an incredibly holy gadol, and he helped tremendous amounts of people. But his tafkid with his kochos, and he pushed 110%, was to produce Rav Moshe. But Miriam the hairdresser, what was her tafkid? How far did she push? Okay, let's use your grandmother as an example. Okay, she had your father also, but an insane life. What was their tafkid? Because your father didn't finish Shas 30 times, therefore he's not as holy as someone else. I don't think that's right. So I care a lot less about your action. I care a lot more about, is a Kadosh Baruch Hu in your heart. Now that doesn't mean I don't care about halacha. I think that it's natural. I think a person that has a genuine, real, deep connection with their Creator will come out and asiyas mitzvahs. But generally, when that happens, if it's really genuine, you're not going to see these sort of breaks that you find in other places. Which is, if a person is from because of action, of societal norms, of what's expected, so they'll put on tefillin and they'll learn a great seder, right? But they just don't care about davening. They don't want to speak to the Creator because it's of no interest to them, because that's just not one of the things that they do or they find boring. So that's why Frumkeit, I think, is. And by the way, your father was mechabing to Rav Meir, al tistakel b'kanka el mash b'soichei, right? It's not about what you do; it's about who you are, and maybe we're missing a little bit of who we are in Frumkeit and focusing too much on the clothes we're wearing or what we're doing.
So I think, with success comes great possibilities, but it also comes great pitfalls. People appreciate things that they really work hard for. So sometimes we've seen that in our Jewish history multiple times, right? We go to great heights. It becomes easy to accomplish those great heights. We take it for granted, and then we falter. Mm-hmm. So I think for the generation coming, the post-Holocaust generation, was an amazing. When you look at what they built, really pretty much everything we have here.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, even in Israel, it's really all built by these Holocaust survivors who worked hard for it.
Yeah.
Whereas now you go to somebody and they go, sorry, I can't help you. I just finished building my beautiful house. Whereas these Holocaust survivors, they didn't live. Their children live in much nicer homes and have much more means than their parents did.
Okay, how do we fix that?
Fixing it is an educational. It really starts from the youth, and you hope that parents can impart this to their children.
How? I can't just tell them. If I try to tell my kid don't take things for granted, that's not going to work. What sort of chinuch do we need?
I think it really starts from, well, first of all, actions speak louder than words, number one. Number two, I think as far as the yeshiva world goes, I think there has to be more of an outreach. I think that...
What do you mean? What do you want to see?
So I think so in Israel, it's going to be a much more difficult, it's a much heavier lift to get unity, because I think you have a greater divide, because I think the army is a greater divide. Mm-hmm. In America, I think it's easier, where you just have to reach across the aisle, listen, and accept their views and talk.
But why can't I just be completely against? Why can a Haredi person be very, very against the army, and yet still have a wonderful relationship with someone that feels that there should be one, and that he should even be part of it?
So I think in Israel it's a much more difficult divide, because if you're going to say that you're against the army, then I think you have to not be nehana from the benefits of having the standing army.
Before we move to that topic, I still don't understand why that has to bar people from having a relationship with each other.
Well, I didn't say it's a bar. I said it's a much heavier lift.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But in that heavier lift, what's the lifting that needs to be? Like, do Mizrachnikim need to have a Shabbos retreat with Satmars? I mean, I'm exaggerating, but maybe that's not such a bad idea. But what needs to happen to start bridging these gaps?
So I think it really has to start with the Haredi people. Lift. I think it's a heavier lift in that they have to impart to the Mizrahi people that they value their opinion and that they don't look down upon them.
Do you think that Mizrahi people do that to Haredim?
I think it's both ways, but I think there's an action and a reaction. Like I remember last time I was in Israel, I was at the Kotel and I was davening in a minyan and actually, I showed up in jeans and a t-shirt and I was davening on, and I guess it was a morning, and I was davening with a I don't know which type of Hasidim, but they had bekishes and with colors and the whole shebang, and they gave me an aliyah. I thought that was impressive.
Right.
And then there was a soldier who was there, and they gave him an aliyah, and I thought that is a way to bridge the divide.
Yeah.
Right.
A couple of years ago, I was on the train here, and whenever I see a soldier, I try to go up and share with them how much Hakaras I took personally. I try to be neutral in these conversations, but I'm a very big proponent of the Israeli army. Not necessarily for every firm person to be in it, as I voiced before in the show, but I have a tremendous amount of Hakaras Tov for soldiers in the army. They're really Moser Nefesh. So I went to the soldier, and I'm a Haredi looking fellow. And he looked at me with like terror in his eyes, like I was gonna like yell at him, and like I could remember he was just like, "Friz, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your service. I really appreciate it. Kosh Baruch Hu should bless you." And he didn't say, his like mouth was just open, and like for so long I just kind of walked away. He was just completely stunned. Yeah, we do need a lot more of that.
And I think it goes a long way. I think we don't appreciate it. I'll tell you just a cute story from from my job. So I had a patient who was not doing well. He's in the ICU. Everything I did, nothing worked. Mm-hmm. Then one of the rabbis from my neighborhood meets this man's wife by the elevator, and they got into a conversation. Mm-hmm. Right? They're, as Chiloni can be, possibly anti everything. But he was talking to her. They had her maiden name was the same as his. He came, so he walks back to the room with this woman, with this man's wife, and only the way this rabbi, you got to just picture him. He's very charismatic, he's got a lot of personality. He goes into the room, he makes a Misha Berach, he does everything. It happens to be that from that time on, everything started to work out well, and it didn't matter what I did after that. The woman was like, oh, "Thank God for that rabbi."
Right.
But she was so appreciative of it, of everything that he did, and it was amazing. I mean.
Being godly goes a long way.
Right.
Being godly goes a long way.
Adi Yom said, she says, thank God, nothing that, not me. She doesn't care about me. She's like, thank God for that rabbi. He saved my husband's life.
Right.
So sometimes just being human, doesn't it?
I think, the kindness, but also it's like you said before, growing up in your father's house, it's like how you do things. So like for me, I have a lot of chesed comes a little bit natural to me, but it's because of the house that I grew up in. So I remember growing up in my father's house, and he just did a lot of things, and it was like totally normal. Like I remember one Shabbos where there was this from fellow that came from nowhere that was supposed to stay by the Rebbe of the community, but the Rebbetzin wasn't comfortable. No one knew who this person was, and so he was walking around Friday night, after the meal, and he's just like, I have no place to stay. Do you know of a place to stay? My father says, oh, you're just going to stay by us? And I'm just like, yeah. So he brings him in, and he's like, and he just like, he comes to me and just says, just lock the door when you go to sleep. And that was normal. And I was like, okay, right? And that was just like so normal. Or my grandfather, Zatzal, he was such an amazing person. But like, he always carried around this little like money pouch thing, and you could not catch him without it. And if someone asked him for tzedakah, something came. Like there was never a situation where you were not going to be catching him not giving tzedakah. You had to give something. So I think it's osmosis. If you're a kid and you grow up in a family that they really value mitzvahs, they don't just do them. It's like important to them, and they stand up for it. It means something to them. Do you know how many fishing trips were ruined because my grandfather said, we have to have mincha with a minyan, it's going to happen? That really had an effect on me. Right? So I do think we need a lot more of that. So it's not just about what you say. You have to lead by example. There was a Talmud once that he was really not being matzliach with getting up for Shacharis. And his father, called me and was really hard on him, when he was in America for the summer. And he was like, he's learning 2 hours a day. I mean, why is he learning 2 hours a day? Is the whole morning he could learn 4 hours a day? I don't know what's going on in his Shacharis. I'm like, I feel like, he's not not so serious. And he's watching movies, and I was just like, wait, hold on, let's take a step back. Last year, he could barely read. He's learning 2 hours a day in the middle of the summer. You're complaining that he's davening 2 minutes, but he was like, no, he's davening shachris. And so before I kind of like showed him, like, you should be so proud of your son. He's really made, in terms of, if you had a stock that only improved 10,000% over the last 2 months, and be like, oh, it could have been 1 million, right? You wouldn't say that, okay? But I asked him, because he was really big on this. I said, look, you really want him to go to shachris? I'm like, yeah. I'm just asking, do you go to shachris in the morning? He said, no, it's work. It's difficult. I have to get up for an early minute. He's like, why would he think that's important if his entire life he's growing up in a house where the man of the house doesn't think that shachris is that important? You'd have to get up earlier. So go. If it's so important, go to sleep a little earlier, get up a little earlier. So we'll see this. Father goes to shachris, right? So we really do need that. A speech is not enough. That's why most of the chinuch doesn't happen in yeshiva. I think a tremendous amount of chinuch, in terms of that core stuff that we're talking about, that happens in the home. Can't happen in yeshiva. Your parents aren't there. Your mother's not there, right? Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit about healing in the Jewish community. And this is always a question I wanted to ask a doctor that has a good amount of experience, which I believe that you do. What are we doing wrong? How could we be better? Okay, so it's true that the Balamor says that Ezu Mamin Hamashmin, that's that person who fattens himself on Shabbos, and the Mishnah Berurah quotes it, and that's beautiful. And I'm not just using that as an example, but if you're on a diet and you're morbidly obese, if you're eating 10,000 calories on Shabbos, you're going to definitely undo whatever thing that you ate, did not, the diet that you did throughout the week. So what does the Jewish community need here in terms of health, physical perspective?
So I think there we also need to educate a little bit, like you were saying, we all grew up in saying, you don't gain weight from what you eat on Shabbos.
Right.
Right, that's the standard. But that's why you have to walk to shul on Shabbos. So I think the education is there. I think there is a time constraint between work, learning, davening 3 times a day. I think it is a tough tafkid to actually find time to exercise. So I think we are asking a tall order of people, but I think we have to put that in somewhere. I remember I was joking around with the Rosh Kollel in Edison. I said, would it bother you if I paid for 2 treadmills so that you could have them in the base measure so that the guys could learn and walk at the same time? It's like, we don't do that here, But you really gotta. People have to be smart about health maintenance and going to preventive maintenance. Preventive medicine is really the key. So it's getting your blood work, getting your blood pressure checked. It's getting the colonoscopies when you're supposed to. There's kind of I think among most of us, there's like this gavra rabba thing. I don't go see doctors. I don't need them, until it's a problem. It's just I'll just tell you a cute story. Just there was like we shouldn't use names, so I'm gonna surprise guy block the story. But there was somebody who from my neighborhood who delivered something to my office and started telling me that he had chest pain, and this was probably 3 weeks before my trip to Israel.
Wow.
Listening to him, I told him, I said, we really have to take care of you. So I said, come. I said, come in now. We'll take care of you right now. He's like, no. I got 4 more deliveries that I have to do. And then I said, all right. So just tell me any time that you need to come in. We'll get you in. So he comes back. 3 hours later, we do a stress test for him. It's clear. I said, all right. We need to do a cardiac cath for you because you could only walk for 3 minutes on the treadmill. You were having chest pain. He's like, I can't. I've got this, that, and the other thing. Finally, I'm getting on the plane to come to Israel, and he texts me. He's like, okay, I'm having more chest pain. It's progressive.
Wow.
So I said, all right, well, I was coming here the Bo Bayom of Thanksgiving. So I said, all right, I'll have one of my friends take care of you on Friday. He's like, no, I want you to do it. I'll wait till you come home. Mm. So this is like so I called him some medication. Thank God, Motzei Shabbos, he told me he's feeling better and the medications are working. And he said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu helps. And this guy's he's a wonderful guy. I would tell you, this guy is such a mensch, but it's just he doesn't take care of himself.
And if the issue is education, how come as Rabbanim, why are we not? I'm blaming myself also, and I'm not saying I'm not guilty of that, by the way, Dr. Schanzer, as you all know. But what
You got to call me Rob. Now it's on tape.
Okay, fine. I'll call you Rob. I'll call you Rob. But why are we not doing that? Why am I not talking about health more? Why are the Gedolim and other Rabbanim? Why are they not talking about health more? And what should we be saying?
So some of it, I think it's the third rail. People will be like, listen, I didn't hire my rabbi to give me health advice. Right?
Oh, but psychiatry, yeah, and psychology, yeah.
Right. And then there's the Gemara in Sanhedrin that says you shouldn't move into a town that doesn't have a mumcha.
That's right.
People, I think that's the other thing that we've lost from the time of my father. When I was growing up, the rabbi's title was the rabbi. Mm-hmm. Everything he said was the rabbi said. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a problem. Why are we doing this? Because the rabbi said. Nowadays, it's like there's 20 guys in the shul who have smicha also. Right. So in some ways, it's great that we have so much. We have more Torah going on now than we've ever had before. Yeah. But I think the respect for the rabbinate may not be where or what.
Everyone's a hero.
Right.
Okay, but even those Rabbanim, I'm not sure we're talking about health really often. Did we ever?
I think it's a hard. I think you can't throw so much on the rabbi's plate.
I appreciate, Rob, you defending us, but I'm not sure that's it. I mean, I could fit another minute to talk about how important health is, and I'm not doing that. And that's not good. So I should change that. But what should Rabbanim be saying? So let's change that now. Yeah, health is important, right? What should we be saying?
I think it's important to talk about the need to take care of yourself. That people should do the health maintenance, and not wait till people only think of really asking the rabbi questions when it's an extremist at the final. Hasidim actually are pretty good about it. They ask the Rebbeim everything. Right.
That's interesting.
It's really in our crowd. It's really the Misnagdish crowd that it's more of a problem.
Yeah. I feel like also in the Sephardi crowd, they're also very respectful. Yeah, right. And they listen.
And they won't do anything without the rabbi.
Right.
So it's really more of an us than a them.
Okay, but hey, that means that 2/3 of the Orthodox Jewish world don't have as much of the issue. So maybe the problem isn't so big. At least we have that, right?
It's true, but I think we have to become smarter. I think.
Have we been smarter? You've been in the field for decades. Are we getting healthier?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think people are doing much better, and people are becoming more cognizant of where they are in preventing. Look, you see much less smoking.
Yeah,
than we ever
Yeah.
have. That's huge, and the weight is down. People are not as heavy as they used to be, mm-hmm. and I think people are also getting more exercise. Mm-hmm. Certainly in Israel. I mean, you look around your kollel, everybody looks more fit than me and you.
Well, they're also a bit younger than me and you, Rob. Okay, as peering from the outside and someone who has benefited very much from the system, but doctors, lawyers, and Indian chiefs, as one of my previous yeshivas would say, but really rabbis. But they're there in the Jewish community, and abuse is not the word that I'm looking for. But they can be pushed on, meaning. And I say this in mostly a good way. Like, there's someone that's sick on Shabbos. Like, we have the infrastructure that, we can go to Rob's house and ask Rob, what's going on. And we have that. If you're a non-affiliated Jew or you're not necessarily Jewish at all, it's difficult to just have a doctor in your back pocket. So you are a servant to the community. What's that like, and do you enjoy it?
Yes.
Okay, we got
I'm not going to make it easy for you.
No, indeed not.
So yeah, I actually do enjoy it. I don't like making decisions that are out of my league that I shouldn't be making when people are coming to you. It's very difficult. Like this Yom Kippur, there was one lady who showed up in shul and she was feeling well. Her blood pressure was 200 and she was dizzy and lightheaded. But I'm not her. She has her cardiologist. I'm not her cardiologist. I don't really know everything about her. It's a difficult kind of decision because it's bridging halachic with medicine, so that is kind of a difficult situation. But look, I was happy was happy that I was there and I could deal with it. So it's actually, I had one teacher who was not really religious, but had a very religious bent to him, who told me, he said, "This is a great job, Rob." He said, "I never go home without having felt that I did at least one mitzvah."
Okay, that's great. Do you think all doctors feel this way?
I hope so.
I hope so too. But there's that guilt when it's like Shabbos 2 p.m. You're like, oh, I have to knock on the door now, and I know they're having their Suda, you know.
So I can't speak for everybody. I can say that my wife is incredible about it. She's never given me a hard time. The number of anniversaries and birthdays that I told her I was going to be home for and missed. And I'll just tell you as an aside, you know, my father, who we were just talking about, right around Pesach time, he was coming home from a great-grandson's bris, and he ended up developing blockage in the artery to his leg.
Yeah, DVT.
So he actually had an arterial block, DVT on the venous side. So his leg was threatened, and you know, and a 90-year-old man, it's really life-threatening. So I called up one of my friends who's a vascular surgeon, and he operated on my father probably from 5 in the afternoon until 2 o'clock in the morning.
Wow, that's incredible.
He missed his wife's birthday. And, you know, I, as being the recipient of it, I can tell you that I appreciate somebody who's basically really saved my father's life.
Right.
Because there's no way that he wouldn't have survived having an amputation. He wouldn't have survived just the whole concept of not having his leg. And he really saved the man's life.
Do you feel that you get recognition from that? I don't mean that in a gaivadik way. I mean, like, do you think people value that and thank you for it?
So I think that there are, once again, like the rabbinate, somehow, at least in America, I don't know how it is here, it's been cheapened. You know, the same way, you know, we talk about, the insurance company talks about a gatekeeper, and they think about this. So it's no longer like when I was growing up. I'm a little older than you.
Yeah.
But when I was growing up, it was the doctor said.
Right. That I remember. Yeah.
It's sort of like the rabbi said.
Right.
Now it's, you know, I can hire this doctor. I can hire this doctor. He's on staff, and you're just one more person that they hire to do what they need.
And so now one of the civil servants is just not as appreciated as they once were.
Right.
That's sad.
But I think that's a societal thing.
Even in the other communities, like in the Sephardic community and the Hasidic community, you think that's also going on?
So I think they still have more respect for their rabbis. I'm not sure they necessarily have the same respect for their physicians. That I think their rabbis still trump their doctors, even in halacha, even though halacha says that the doctor trumps their rabbi.
Well, it is true with what you said before. Your wife is an amazing person. Your kids, how did they deal with that? You know, when all of a sudden their father was, where is he? He's not here. So
once again, that's what you were saying. You learned from your grandfather. My kids learned from their mother. So they learned that my wife told them, Abba is taking care of somebody's life. It's somebody else's Abba, somebody else's Zaidi. So that my kids, I was joking around, I told my son I was going to retire. I said, I want to retire and learn in Kolo. You're going to work and support me now.
Right.
Said, you know, and he said, like, he didn't say that he doesn't want to support me, because thank God, Baruch Hashem, my oldest is doing well and would support me. He said, but I get so much hana out of you taking care of people.
That's incredible. That's an incredible thing to say.
So that he doesn't want me to retire just because he really gets hana out of it. And he says he likes me saying, oh, my father took care of X, Y, Z, and this.
Right. You know, Benji was just here, and we don't get to talk much because of our schedules. And out of the limited time that we had together, I considered, was like, oh, I really want to help this person, but I'm not exactly sure the best way to do it. And he shared with me an experience that he's having, trying to navigate now, where the majority of him helping this person is him receiving negative feedback. Generally, if you're trying to do something nice for someone and then you receive negative feedback, you go, good luck, right? But no, he's just like, no, what's the best way that I can navigate this? So yeah, I think we do see that. And we hope that these sort of behaviors continue, but it's beautiful.
It rubs off on him.
It did rub off. No, you rubbed off on him. Okay, we both rubbed off on him. Maybe we'll say that. Okay, so here's another question for you. Do you feel that in Eretz Yisrael, there's that same sort of lack of attentiveness to and respect to doctors, or do you think that they're more well respected? Because I feel like we have a lot more doctors here than Chutz La'aretz.
You do have a lot more. I'll just tell you a very cute story. So I always said that, if Eretz Yisrael needs me, I'm gonna come. So after October 7th, I called up every volunteer service possible to try, and they told me they don't need me and they don't want me.
It's incredible.
So at first I was a little hurt. I'm like, you're in the middle of a war and I'm not good enough? I thought I was a pretty competent cardiologist. But then I had a friend who was special forces in Israel, and he's a trauma surgeon, and he's really an excellent surgeon. I trust him implicitly. And they told him they don't need him either. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay. But my daughter was learning here, and I was coming in November to learn with her. So I was coming anyway. So I emailed all those same places. I said, look, I'm coming regardless. I'll put stretchers. I don't care, whatever you guys want. They emailed me back. They're like, that's so sweet of you to offer. We don't need any more doctors. So when you land, we're going to give you the name of a few places where you can go and pick fruit. but the story gets even better. So I'm on the plane, and there's so many doctors on my flight. And I'm like, did they want you to volunteer and not me? They're like, oh, no. There's like a neurosurgeon, there's me, a cardiac surgeon, trauma surgeon. We're all going to pick fruit.
That's ridiculous.
The country didn't need us, thank God.
Right.
But they needed people to pick fruit.
That's amazing. Did you do it?
Of course.
That's great.
We had the most educated fruit picking crowd
that's ever been assembled.
Ever been assembled.
Okay, so here's another thing I really wanted to ask you. Maybe I shouldn't assume, so I guess two questions. As a doctor in the modern age, I'm assuming that you need to be well informed on the current advancements in medical knowledge. And that's not just medications, but technologies as well. As far as I know, the doctors that I can think of, they all go to conferences. But I'm assuming that's true. You do need to be very well up to date. Okay, where you see medicine going for even cardiovascular issues, is their lives going to be really different in 20 years from now? Because I feel like there is a really big turning point here technologically.
So I think just technologically we're light years ahead of where we were 20 years ago, and the next 20 years is looking promising. A lot of the technology is actually coming out of Israel.
Mm. Did you hear about Dr. DeVere, what he's doing?
No.
I really want to speak to Dr. DeVere on the show, but there's a doctor by the name of Dr. DeVere, and what he's doing is he is bioprinting organs. So hearts, I think he just did a spinal cord, which is insane.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible.
But the technology coming out of Israel is phenomenal. I mean, there's something that we all use now all the time in America, and I'm sure they have it here, that you do a CAT scan of the arteries of the heart, and there's this thing called CathWorks, which came out of Israel, and it measures the actual blockage. It tells you whether or not it's a significant critical lesion or not, whether that needs to be fixed or...
Before you'd have to just guess?
So, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that sounds
so this is a non-invasive way of guessing, of knowing what it is. We used to be able to do it in the cath lab. You could put a wire down across the artery and you measure the flow. But this is a non-invasive way, and it obviates the need for cardiac catheterization. So it's amazing technology. And then just as I was on the plane coming here, there's technology now to genetically re-engineer some of the cells to lower cholesterol. So wow. It's just going to be, stop taking medicine. It's just you get infected with this virus that will affect all your cells, and your cholesterol will be down. So, and when the cholesterol's down, most people probably probably eradicate heart disease.
That's pretty incredible.
So the technology is getting better. It's amazing. I mean,
how's life for us going to change because of those technologies?
So hopefully we will live longer and better. Look, just in our lifetime, people are lasting longer and hopefully living better.
Are they? I don't know. You tell me.
I think they're living better. When I was growing up, I don't remember seeing people in their 80s and 90s, and now.
Really.
And now seeing people in their 80s is ma'asim b'chol yom.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we are doing better. We have a lot more weapons in our armamentarium to keep people going around. We have, in the old days, if you were 90 and you needed valve surgery, nobody would operate on you. Now it can all be done through the leg. We can fix valves through what called TAVR.
I have a great aunt. She's 99. She just had valve surgery 2 weeks ago. And I think she's out now.
And that's something that we didn't have 5 years ago.
Yeah.
10 years ago. So So it's really it's an amazing thing. So there you have somebody who's a viable, bright, capable woman, and she would have succumbed in 6 to 18 months to the valve without that procedure. So it's getting so much better.
Do you think that Yidden in the next generation are as encouraged to become doctors as they were when you were a kid?
No.
Why?
Some of it is what we were saying before about the drive. That's one. I don't think they have it. The other thing is, the truth is that there's a tremendous amount of financial constraints on kids nowadays.
And there wasn't when you were a kid?
Not to the same level that these guys have.
Why is that?
I think the cost of housing in Jewish neighborhoods and yeshiva tuition has gone up astronomically in comparison to salaries. So doctor salaries have gone down, whereas the cost of living has gone up. I'm not crying poverty in any way, man. Cardiologists are still, we're still doing fine on the pay scale, but I think the kids look around. Like I took both my boys on rounds with me because I thought that it'd be nice to have Schanzer and Sons, and all the nurses are like, "Oh, you're going to become a cardiologist like your daddy," and they're like, "No, I think he works too hard. We're gonna be lawyers instead." It's that, so I think they see, you go to, they see that it's easier to go into business. Look, even my Rebbe, he asked me, he said, "Oh, you want your kids to become doctors?" And I said, "No, we'll see." He said, "You want them to own a few buildings in Lakewood and collect rent?" I'm like, "Yeah, that would, then they'll have time to do the things they want to do."
Right.
Right. So some of it is also from us. We don't tell the kids like, "Oh," we say you want your children to have a better life than you had, for whatever that means.
Right.
So, like you said, so yeah, I missed. Sometimes I feel bad. Sometimes on a Shabbos, thank God we live around the corner from my father. So there were a lot of times on Shabbos morning that I wasn't home I didn't get home from the hospital. So I was lucky that my father would take my boys to shul, so they didn't feel like they missed me. But I think if I didn't have that, the kids do miss out on certain things that having a father who's not around, who's stuck in the hospital, says he's going to be home. You're not there with them Friday night. You're not there, or you're sitting there Friday night, and you're singing L'Chadodi and you're running away. So yes, they were proud of it, but it's also a little bit of.
It's bittersweet.
Bittersweet. Look, it's like rabbis. A lot of the rabbis' children don't go into the rabbinate because they feel that
same thing.
Their parents were. It's great. They're proud of their father. Their father's a great gadol, but it's just they feel they're sharing their father with a lot of other people.
Is this a loss? Would you encourage kids to become doctors as much as they were before?
I think if you have that desire, it's still the greatest calling.
Dr. Schanzer, thank you so much.